It is an important night in the Middle East. In the last hour, we've had an announcement from President Biden endorsing a ceasefire agreement in Lebanon, which will take effect at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The deal, which is set to win the backing of the Israeli cabinet, will mean that over the next 60 days, the IDF will begin to scale back its ground operations in southern Lebanon. But tonight, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Israel reserved the right to respond should Hezbollah fail to abide by the terms set down in the agreement.
So
why go into a ceasefire now? There are three main reasons. The first, focusing on the Iranian threat. And I don't want to expand on that. The second, to allow our forces to refresh and to also allow our resources to be replenished. It is no secret that there have been some delays in the supply of ammunition and arms, and this delay is going to be removed. We're going to have advanced weapons, and that will save the lives of our soldiers, and it will give us great force to complete our missions. Another third reason for the ceasefire is to disconnect the two arenas and isolate Hamas. Since the second day of the war, Hamas relied on Hezbollah to fight alongside it. But with Hezbollah out of the picture, Hamas will be left on its own.
So here's the outline of the deal. According to the terms agreed, Hezbollah will withdraw its forces from southern Lebanon, moving some 25 kilometres back from the Israeli border, north of the Litani River. In turn, the Israeli troops will gradually withdraw from southern Lebanon over a period of 60 days, with the regular Lebanese army deploying in their place alongside an existing UN force that is already there, known as UNIFIL. So the contours of the agreement, you might recognise them, are similar to the deal that was agreed to end the war in 2006 under UN Resolution 1701, though since then each side has complained that the other has not fully respected their obligations. The Israelis, though, are reassured that this time there is an international committee of 5 nations that will oversee enforcement, headed by the United States. Here's President Biden.
I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment. For nearly 14 months, a deadly conflict raged across the border that separates Israel and Lebanon. A conflict that began the day after the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel. Hours later, at 2 a.m. in the morning, Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations backed by Iran attacked Israel in support of Hamas. Let's be clear, Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either, nor did the United States.
Well, before we speak to our panel, let's get an update from our correspondents who are watching closely. First, from Frank Gardner, who is in Jerusalem. Not universal approval of this agreement, Frank, and a very fragile peace over the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, the Security Cabinet, which is the first barrier, the first hurdle that this deal had to get through here in Israel, approved it by 10-1. It was well known that Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, was opposed to it. He thinks it's a bad deal because Israel hasn't finished off Hezbollah in his eyes, and that this was an opportunity missed, a historic opportunity missed, I think he called it. But it's pretty much, it's a done deal now. It's passed, it's going through, it's going to happen. It will come into force tomorrow. I think the difficult thing is going to be implementing it and stopping it being derailed, because there is enormous mistrust on both sides here. Many people in the north of Israel fear that this will simply allow Hezbollah to rearm, regroup, and build up to attack them again, perhaps in 2 years' time. Because remember, that's not the first time there's been a war between Israel and Hezbollah. The last big one was 2006. That ended with Hezbollah supposedly being held north of the Litani River. That didn't happen. So the big test now, and the first 60 days of this ceasefire, I think, will be an interesting indication of whether it has any chance of succeeding. The big test will be, can the UN and a bolstered Lebanese National Army impose enough security and peace and tranquility in the south of Lebanon to make sure that Hezbollah doesn't come back and Israel doesn't resume its airstrikes on that country. That's going to be the big test.
Frank in Jerusalem, thank you very much for that. Let's quickly go to Washington and speak to Rowan Bridge, who was watching the president's speech. It was a pretty optimistic take, I have to say, Rowan, from the president tonight. Still thinks the Abraham Accords can be negotiated, still thinks there's a future for a two-state solution. On what basis does he come to that sort of optimistic vision?
Well, I mean, I think for Joe Biden, this is something of a foreign policy triumph. You know, he is in the waning weeks of this administration, and power and attention has started to move over towards Donald Trump. And for Joe Biden, this is something that can be a capstone to the end of his presidency. And I think he really has a sense of optimism that he can move forward beyond this. You know, Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, earlier on today was saying that they hope that this leads to a de-escalation of tensions within the Middle East. And I think part of it really is the hope that this will then put pressure on Hamas and the situation in Gaza and basically force the issue for them now that Hezbollah have kind of been taken out of the picture, and that may force things forward on the Gaza front and the release of hostages there. Now, Joe Biden clearly hopes beyond that it will move on to a broader Middle East peace. Whether he's able to maintain that momentum behind it, I think is a very open question, because it is a very complex and there are a lot of moving parts there that really aren't lined up for a peace deal at the moment.
Rowan Bridge in Washington, thank you very much for that.